Sometimes, if you want to understand a country's biggest, boldest plans, you don't need to dig through some dense government report. Nope. Turns out the whole blueprint can be hiding in a pretty unexpected place, like a kid's textbook. And that's exactly what we're diving into today.
So think about this for a second. How does a whole country actually plan its future? I mean, it's this massive puzzle, right? You've got economics, culture, social stuff all mixed together. And today, we get to look at one of the most ambitious plans out there, but we're doing it through a really unique window.
And here's our guide. This is an English language textbook for students in Saudi Arabia. And woven right into the lessons, you'll find the core ideas of one of the biggest national projects on the planet, Vision 2030.
Okay, so before you can figure out where you're going, you gotta know where you're starting from, right? Makes sense. And that's exactly where this textbook begins, by laying out the country's core strengths, its foundational wealth. So the lesson kicks off by asking the students just one really simple but fundamental question. And this question, it pretty much sets the stage for everything that follows. And this is really important, before they even start talking about the future, the curriculum makes students think about right now. It asks them, straight up, what makes the country strong and wealthy today? And the answer they give? It's pretty fascinating. You might think it's all about oil, but no. The focus here is on the people, their skills, their potential. But the textbook is clear. That's only one half of the equation. The other half? Well, that's the country's massive untapped natural resources. So you got this 1-2 punch of human capital and natural wealth. And that's the launching pad for the whole Vision 2030. All right, so once that foundation is set, the lesson makes a shift. It pivots from the here and now to the what's next. Because, it's not just about being strong. The goal is to build an economy that's even more powerful. So the next part of the lesson lays out the big challenge. It's like, okay, we have these strengths, our people, our resources. How do we use them to do something even bigger on the world stage? And boom, here's the question that drives the entire vision. We're not just talking about being a regional leader here. The ambition is to be a global economic powerhouse. And pretty much the rest of the lesson is all about answering this one big question. So how do you do it? Well, the textbook lays out a surprisingly simple 3-step plan. First, you maximize what you can do with investments. Second, you start privatizing things the state owns. And third, and this one is probably the most important, you build up whole new parts of the economy that have nothing to do with oil. It's basically a classic recipe for economic transformation, just boiled down for the next generation to understand. And right here, you can see the connection clear as day. This isn't some high-level abstract government plan that nobody understands. By putting the official Vision 2030 logo and ideas right in the textbook, they're teaching it literally page by page to the kids who are going to be the ones to actually build it. Okay, so what does all this actually look like for the average person living there? The textbook doesn't just get stuck in boring economic theory. It actually tries to paint a picture of what this new society will feel like. And the vision promises some really concrete things. We're talking about better healthcare, not just physical, but mental and social well-being too. A whole bunch of new jobs, new chances for small businesses and big companies to invest, and just making it easier to do business in general. The idea is to create a society that isn't just richer, but it's also healthier and way more dynamic. Now, all of that sounds pretty practical, right? Ambitious for sure, but practical. But then, the textbook drops a hint about something else, something that sounds like it's pulled straight from a sci-fi movie. And there it is. This is a direct quote. It literally talks about building around a megadome, something so huge that if you looked at it from space with a satellite, it would look like bubbles. I mean, wow, that's a pretty wild futuristic image to find in a school textbook, right? So after all that, after laying out this grand plan for the nation's destiny, how does the lesson wrap up? Well, it ends just like you'd expect any school lesson to end, with homework. Yep. After explaining the foundations, the economic plan, and even that crazy futuristic vision, the textbook brings it right back down to the student sitting at the desk. It asks them to take everything they just learned and, make it personal. And this is their final assignment. It's not about memorizing the government's plan or what the textbook says anymore. The homework asks each student to describe their own vision for what Saudi Arabia will look like in 2030. That's a really smart way to get them personally invested in this huge national project, don't you think? And that kind of leaves us with one last thought, doesn't it?
If someone gave you that same assignment for your town, your community, your country, what would you write? What would your vision for 2030 look like?